Recording in progress.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. So, in our previous class, we learned about validations, how to handle them. So, React validations, we can use HTML and CSS classes. We learned HTML validation attributes and CSS classes. Actually, these are CSS validation state classes. So we learned how to use them and create a form with the validation. So majority of validations we can manage with HTML and the CSS classes. To define custom validation. Custom validation is our own validations. So we used a formic validate function. We have a validate function. Validate function is nothing but we can write a function. That function will return errors by verifying the fields and their requirements. Means every validation we manually write. We can write the validations manually by using this validate function. Already I showed you. One more time, a simple overview I will give how the validation function works. So what is the concept of validation function is, I will add another component here. So I am going to add a component by name validation demo. So validation demo.jsx and export function validation demo and return a simple component. So in this validation demo, I will just add a form. That means we will create one form. We will add a form. In this form, we are having some elements. Suppose username and input type is text. And we have another age. Some input type is number or text something. Now I need to verify. So we have a button, submit. Already drop down and all I told you how we can validate. So here we want our custom validation, our own validations we want to write. Last session, what we done is we used HTML validation. That means required, min length, pattern, like that we use it. If you want to write your own, you may ask like if already validations are present, why we need our own validation? Why we need our own validations? Because many validations of HTML may not match your requirements. For example, HTML have email validation. In that email validation, it will verify only at the net present or not. And you just add at the net with random text, it will say verified. But we are not satisfied with that kind of validation. So we write our own. And in HTML, you learned how to bypass the default validations of HTML. HTML have validations. How to skip them? For example, so suppose I am using data term email. Data definition input type is having email. You have a email type. So what is problem in this? I will show you. Let's put it in the startup. Validation demo. Okay. Now what is problem in this form is the validation demo. Here HTML validation is being used. So you see now here, suppose you are writing required. When I write required, so without entering the name, if I say required, it will submit. Why it is taking default some colors? Because I already told you, whenever you design your components, don't use type selectors directly. If you use the type selectors directly, what will happen? It is going to affect everywhere. These type selectors will affect everywhere. Always use what kind of selectors? Class. We have to always use the class selectors. Class or ID selectors you can use, right? So don't use the type selectors. Actually, this all not required. I will remove that. Fine. This is related to previous one. Even it previous one, you should not use. Now in this form, we have a simple form. In that form already, you can see that when I submit, it will verify. Because HTML have the ability to verify the validations because already these are ready-made components. Okay, I'm entering some name. Email, I entered some name, some email. And I click on submit. It is saying, please include at the net. That's okay. That means I will at the net, I will include at the net inside that here. Is it valid email? It is not a valid email, but it can submit it. It will submit. That means HTML have validations inbuilt. Those validations may not suit you every time because HTML have a input type tell. Tell means it will take telephone number. But the default format of telephone number, some US format or some Japanese format. Why we need that format? We don't need. So in HTML, what you learned, how to disable the validations of HTML. You can disable the validations of HTML by setting an attribute of form no validate. This is a HTML validation attribute. This validation attribute indicates that form will not use the validations anymore. Will not use the validations means inbuilt. HTML validations can be ignored. It can be bypassed. So Why developer use this? In HTML, you learn this, no validate. Why to use no validate? We are planning to write our own validation. Then we don't want again default validation to work. Default validation bypass and you write your own validation. In that case, you can set up this no validate. You will see in many React, Angular, or front end technologies, many people using this no validate for a form. Why they are using no validate for a form? Because form internally have some validations which we don't want, because they are not according to our requirements. We will try to write our own. Now, when you do this, you see, suppose now what happens here, without entering the name, I click on submit. It submits the form. It is not showing name required. Even I given required, it is not verifying. Why? Because no validate indicates that ignore the validations. Why we are ignoring the validations? Because now we are planning to write our own validations. We'll write our own validation. This general thing you already know in HTML. If anyone asks like how to disable the default HTML validations in a form element, in a form container. How to disable the default HTML validations in a form container? You know that by using no validate attribute for form. By using no validate attribute for form. We need to just set up no validate. So this is one important. So generally when we recommend this is when you are writing your own validations, do this. If I don't do this, what will happen? By default validation will work and your validation also will work. That means 2 times validating. We don't want that. In that case, we need to set up this no validate, right? So here we are using no validate because we are trying to write our own validation. So now how to write the validation? How we can write our own validation? So what we need to do, we will import formic. Formic is equal to use formic. Okay. In the formic, what are the fields you need to manage? So initial values, I need to manage. One is name, username, which is a string, age, which is a number, and some email, that's also a string. Email, or I said some mobile, something. Now here I just given some input type as what? Mobile. And some all are text. Here we are defining. And you know that every form element must have a name, username, and this name is what? Age. This name is like mobile. Okay. How to write the functionality on submit? We have to collect the values and we need to submit those values. Temporarily, I am using console.log what values. Later, we will submit into APIs and all we will see. Okay, now what should happen is we want validation for username, age, and mobile. How do we write the validations? How do we define the validation? First, we need to write one function. This is validate form. Any name you can give. And this will collect the data coming from the form. The data coming from the form will be username, age, and mobile. So we will store in one object. You can use any object name. I'm using form data. That is the form data. Form data is, or I will use here form collection. What is this form collection is? It collects the values from the form. And what this validate form have to do? It should collect every field from the form. It should verify the field value and must report a error if it is not matching. So this validate function must return errors. How to return errors? We will declare errors. Errors is an object. This object contains username related error, age related error, and mobile related error. That means 3 fields we are returning error messages. It should return those errors. So it must return those errors. Errors object it should return. So what error should display for username? What is the validation? So what you have to do, write your logic. If form collection is form collection, in that we will access which field? Username. If username is equal to empty, that means it is empty. There is no value inside. Then what should be the error message? Errors dot username. In that the message must be username required. Okay. So else if it is present, it is not empty. Then we will again check errors dot what? Username dot length is less than 4. That means errors dot username message should be name too short. That's the name we are giving. Like this, you can add whatever logics you want for that field. Okay, this is for name. How you write for age? Age must be number. Then you know how to verify. If form collection, so means is NaN. You know in JavaScript how to verify numbers. You learned verifying numbers, verifying booleans, different logics you learned. How you verify number using is NaN. If is NaN, form collection dot what? Age. Age. If it is not a number, what should happen? Errors dot age. It should display a message. The message is nothing but age must be a number. Otherwise, here else, here also we can give if it is greater than, else errors dot what? Username will be empty. That means we don't show any error. Here also errors dot age is equal to what? Empty. You can even write range of greater than, less than, between this value. Okay. How you will write mobile? We can write if, what is it? Form collection dot what? Mobile. Mobile dot match. You know in JavaScript, We will verify a pattern and a value by using which function? Match. If mobile is matching with regular expression, what is regular expression is some slash plus 91 slash D 10 digit number. Regular expressions are written in two slash, right? If it is matching with this regular expression, then it is okay. Errors dot what? Mobile is empty. If it is not matching, errors dot mobile, we will put a message as invalid mobile. Invalid mobile we need to set. This is how we manually write all the validations. Again, this is lengthy process, but in many occasions we have to do this because HTML don't have a solution for every type of validation. It will provide limited validation attributes which you can use. Others you have to manually write. Now, once you return the validation function, this validation function must be used by your formic. That means here formic, we have to use validate. Formic uses validate from which function the validation will come. Validation will come from validate form. That means it uses an object. It is returning an error object. Na? It uses an error object. That error object is stored inside this validate. Now formic we have to handle here. That means we have to write on submit formic dot what? Handle submit. Handle submit. Okay. Here on change formic dot handle change. Okay. So we are changing. Here we are changing all the options. Okay. Name, mobile, everything fine. Now this time what happens when user clicks on submit? Where to show the messages also you have to decide. Where to show message below this text box. Here we need to get the message and show. How we can access errors? Formic dot what? Errors. Errors dot which field? User name. We have to access that and show. Here I will put a class as text danger. Same for age we need to define. Data definition, yeah. Class as text danger. And here it have to use formic dot errors dot age. And here for mobile, text danger, formic dot, formic on change on, this is directly errors, formic dot errors related to mobile. Now you can see that. So when we run this and I click on submit, it should verify that. Here I haven't written required for mobile. You can write multiple. Now I entered some name. I'm entering some name. It says name too short. Again, it is fine. When it is completed, fulfilled, that means what we have to do, we need to hide the message. That means here we need to write the logic for that also. So what we need to do, if it is satisfying, here also, if it is satisfying, it should display the message. If less than that, it should be hidden. Why it is not hiding? Okay. It should hide after for username dot length. Errors username. This mobile. Right. invalid mobile. So, and here we have what? Plus 91. It is fine. Why this is not string is matching. Okay. So we have name required, name too short. Still it is. String. Let's verify with length. Username, field name we given correctly. On change, handle change, username. Equal to 0. So if it is less than 4, name too short. Otherwise empty. It's okay. I think somewhere. So this is age must be number. This is also working fine. Acha, somewhere we have I think some classes somewhere we left. Anywhere we written some validation classes last session. I cleaned these, no? Validation demo. That's fine. Is there any problem in the logic? If form collection dot what? Username dot length is less than 4. Errors dot username is equal to, so name too short. Otherwise, errors dot username should be empty. Yes. No? Previously also we done the same. Huh? Errors wrong. Huh? It's fine. Okay, so this is defined here. Now, when I click on submit, it is asking like name required. You are entering some name. It is too short. Now a minimum 4 characters, then it is fine. Similarly, you are entering some text. It says age must be number. You entered number. Now it's okay. Mobile also invalid mobile. Then what we need to do, we need to use plus 9.1, then it will be fine. This is all the validation that you are defining manually. Manually, we are writing the functions and returning them. This order I showed you already in the notes. So I given this in the note now. So validate function. So form make validate function. Already given this last session, but a different example I given here. Previously, we combined both HTML and all. Here I written only the validation of uh, custom validation. So formic validate function is nothing but what is the first step? Create a function, right? Create a function that returns errors, that returns error object. So we need to create a function, some validate. So here you need to keep errors is an object, field and value. And return that errors object. So write custom functions to validate field value from a form collection. So write custom functions to validate field value from form collection. So syntactically, roughly like if form collection dot user name dot length 0, then errors username required, just roughly. Like this, we need to write the condition. After that, what we have to do, configure validation function for formic. Configure validation function for formic form. So how do we do that? Constant formic is equal to use formic. In that initial values, and validate. So it uses the function name validate form. This is error function. That's the error function. Now display error message using formic.errors. Using that, you have to display the errors. Formic.errors.fieldName. Right. So we need to define this validate function manually. So example, I will copy this one, validation demo.jsx. This is the example. Okay. Now this looks fine. Now we have two concepts learned. Use the HTML attributes and verify them, or write your own, because all not possible with HTML validations. We need a combination. Yes, last session I showed you we have both our own validation, HTML validation, both were working there. So more little simplified process is there. Actually, we have third party validation libraries. We can use the third party validation library. What is advantage is they already written the validations. You just attach them. That means you don't need to write the validation functions. That means suppose I want to verify a required field, then I need to write a condition. These kind of things they already written. Just you attach them and you can customize. You can modify according to your requirements. So like that, there are so many third parties. So Formic can use those third party libraries to simplify the validation. And for that, we have a library called Formic uses a library called YUP, library for validation. So one of the popular library for forms is YUP. YUP. So actually, it is a library for handling form validations. It is a library for handling form validations. So it provides validation schema. It provides a validation schema. What is meant by schema is a structured. Validation schema is a built-in structured validation. So schema, so built-in structure. So it provides various validation services which you can inject and implement in a form. It provides various validation services which you can inject and implement in a form. So in any software programming, especially object based, object oriented programming, computer programming languages, we have process oriented programming, procedure oriented programming, procedure, and object based programming, object oriented programming. So many programming approaches are there, programming systems are there. One of the speciality about OOP and object based and object oriented is dependency injection. You are Java, .NET or any OOP learner, obviously you will learn a concept of dependency injection. So what is dependency injection in Java and .NET? So how these dependency injection works, that's a OOP concept. If you learned any OOP language, you know dependency injection. Actually, what is meant by service? Later we will use several more services. What is the concept of services? For example, yeah, I will give you a basic hierarchy. If you are working in a software project development process, means if you are involved in it, means related to programming and all. Usually, programming languages uses some values. They use some functions. That means majority programming languages have built-in values and functions. By using these values and functions, we build an app. That means generally application is built by using those values and functions. But we don't directly import and use them. Means at higher level, we don't directly import and use them. What we do is, so first means hierarchy, I will tell you. Our developers, what they do is, they design factories. They design factories. That means in software programming, we have these technical terms. A factory is a collection of values and functions. A related type of values and functions are kept in a factory. Suppose in Java or .NET or even JavaScript, you learn string. String factory provides a string functions. Array factory provides array functions. Math factory provides math functions. That means a set of values and functions are kept in a factory. And like that, related type of functions and values are kept in factories, different factories. Now we don't use these factories also in application. We don't use these factories also in application. That means values and functions, these values and functions are kept in a factory. These factories we don't use directly. These factories we inject into services. These factories are injected into services. That means factories are kept in service. A service is a collection of factories. Factory is a collection of values and functions. That means what we do is we create a service. Generally, what we do, we design services, and service contains collection of factories. These services we use in application. Directly also we don't use services. What we do, we inject the services in a component. We inject the services into component, and this component we will use to build app. React, Angular, all front-end technologies are component based now. In the current generation, they are all component based. Already we discussed that React is component based. Applications are built by using what? Components. Components are built by using services. Means we use a lot of logic, and completely we don't depend on only logic that we write. Ready-made logic is present, we inject and use. We don't write manually everything. Lot of contents are already written, you just inject and use. What now at higher level, experience level, see, many people may not have idea about factories. Many people may not have idea about that. But experienced people, they ask these kind of questions. Why? Because see, you are learning Angular React, but do you know we have seen Angular React born? We have seen born. That means we have seen we were training people before Angular and React were born. And at that time, we were using some technologies and libraries to do the same work, which were involved with factories, values, and all. Now, Angular React people came with a concept like, so you don't write factories directly. We will design services for you. You inject them and you can use them. This history, general people don't know. People who have seen the evolution of technologies like React and Angular, they know everything. They know that we have factories, we have services. Experts know that the libraries are built by using this hierarchy. Now, in interviews of experienced people, they ask, why don't you use a factory directly? Why you are using a service? That means to build an app, why you are not using a factory directly? Because factory is also collection of values and functions. Why you are not using a factory directly? Why you are using a service? Then the answer for this, factory uses a single call mechanism. Services use a singleton mechanism. Single call and singleton. Service, if anybody talking about a service in any software technology, Java, .NET, anywhere, so it is talking about a design pattern called singleton. What is single call mechanism? Single call mechanism means whenever you need a functionality, you have to create an object. Through that object, you have to access the functionality. If I need a function 10 times, you need to create 10 objects. That means if I have to use a function 10 times, then I need 10 objects. What is singleton pattern? Singleton pattern, it creates an object for the first request and the same object it will use for others. Object is created only once. And almost every OOP languages will have the concept of singleton, single call mechanism. They will teach you if you are learning Java or OOP languages, C# and all. They will teach you singleton mechanism. Singleton means, in Java, .NET like or C++ like languages, you can create a class. So now tell me, when we create a class, how many objects we can create for a class? Any number of objects, but if it can create only one, then it is called singleton. Singleton allows to create only one instance. Now, in many experience interviews, they ask like, design a class in that way and show me. That means, okay, you are a OOP learner, you are expert in OOP, then design a class in such a way that it can have only one instance. Second time, it should not able to create that instance. Only one instance must be created. Services uses this pattern. Which pattern? Singleton. So we use this pattern. Once we load into memory, we create an object. Through that object, we can access any number of times. So why we don't use factories? Because factories use a single call mechanism and service use a singleton. And third party libraries, majority all provide like services. Majority all third parties will provide service. And service means you just inject and use it. They will be working with a pattern called what? Singleton. So Services use singleton pattern. Use singleton design pattern. So what is that singleton pattern? You know that object only object is created for first request and the same is used across requests. So ready-made built-in services are present. Validation related services. We can use those validation services. So YEP is a library. It is a third-party library that provides some validation services which you can inject and implement for a form. Let's see how to do this, how this works. First step, what you have to do, install YEP library for project. So that is npm install. So YEP and save. Okay. Next, what you have to do is import YEP services into your component. We can do two ways actually. Import asterisk as YEP from YEP. What is this? Is nothing but imports all services. Instead of that, you can import only what services you want. That means you can say import required, import min length, like this. So length like this. So import pattern. All such things you can import from where? Yep. What is this? Imports only specified. This is going to import only specified. That means if you say asterisk, it is going to import all services. All validations are available. No, you want only 1, 2 validations only, then you can just import what you want. Because if you are not using all validations and you are using just 1 or 2, better do the second way. Because importing all and using only 1 or 2 is not great, right? You have to import the service. Now, how to define? So, what is the point is, YEP provides a validation schema, which you have to configure for Formic. So YEP provides a validation schema which you have to configure for Formic. So that means what you have to do, constant Formic, use Formic. In this time we have initial values. That's an object. After that, here you can define validation schema. Validation schema. You have to use YEP object yup dot object. This yup dot object contains that yup object contains field name and yup dot service. So you can import service 1, service 2, all you can change them. All the validation services you can write. That is how we set service means what? Required service, min length service, max length service, pattern service. These are all ready-made services. Email service, we have ready-made. We have to just use those services. So that means here, yup service. Yup service includes so number, string, so min length required, min length, so max length, pattern. So these are all the services. Right. So you write manually the validation functions and you apply, or you use ready-made service. These will simplify your validation. So you don't need to write much. They will simplify. How? Let's do this now. I will remove this validation function now. That means the complete validation function that you have written, remove. And it is not validate anymore. That means I removed the complete validation function. Okay, then how you will validate if you remove the validation function currently? So validations are not working here. The validations, nothing. I'm clicking on them, then nothing is working. Okay, now how to set up the validation? So using yup library, open your terminal, npm install yup and save. Here, in which component you want to use? In that component, we have to import this yup service. How to import yup service? At the top, we have to import asterisk as yup from which library? Yup. Or individually also you can import. Individually, as I told you, import like we say required. So from which library? Yup library. Like this we can do. Multiple required like min length, max length, all this. But if you want all, simply asterisk to import from yup. And all these you can access by using what? Yup. So now what we have to do after importing, just put a validation schema. Validation schema. Here the validation schema is built by using yup. Yup dot what? Object. This yup object contains specification. What are the specifications it contains? Field name. Field name is what? Username. What are its restrictions? First, Yep, it requires username must be a string. That is the first service attach. Next, username must be required. Next, username should have min length. So or say min. Min how much? Number. So you have like what? Max number. Suppose I given min. But remember, these services have inbuilt messages. They will automatically put a message. We don't want that. We want to override those messages. Then here required what message? Message is what? Name required. Min how much? Min is some 4. If it is not 4, what is the message? Message is name too short. Like this we need to do. Similarly, next field, what is the field? Age. What is the data type? Yup dot what type? Number. Actually, in old version, directly we can write the validation because form able to identify the data type according to initial value. But now latest version, they made data type mandatory. Earlier, we don't need to write the data type because initial values are taken as type. But now they made it mandatory. That's the reason in any website or online YouTube channels anywhere, if you are watching a old video of validations and all, so that means 3-4 years, 1-2 year back, then you will see that people directly writing yep dot required. That will not work anymore. It will not work anymore. It is mandatory to mention the data type. Earlier data types were optional, but now they made it mandatory. So it is mandatory that you have to mention data type of every field. After that, you add your validation. First must be type. Data type must be there. Okay, number. After that, any message you want to show. So age must be a number. Okay, what else you want? I want required also. That means what is that? Age required. What else you want to do? So we want min. Min is 15 number. That means uh, age minimum 15 required. So we have like max. So we have like some 30. So here message is max 30 only. 30 only. That is how we write the validation. That means no conditions, nothing. Just you put ready-made validation. Required, min, max. Suppose we have mobile. Okay. What is this mobile? Yup. Yup dot what? It is not a number, it is a string. Because we want to use a +91 pattern. It is a string. So it should match with what? Pattern. It should match with pattern. Actually, it is not pattern. They have used a new one, matches. Matches with which pattern? Regular expression. Regular expression is what? /+91/D. So 10 digit number. If it is not matching, message. Message is what? Invalid mobile. Now, what is the advantage of this is you don't need to write any function and you don't need to point the function. You directly write a schema. And remember, every validation schema is not same. That means we are using YUP as a third party library. Actually, we have hook form and other libraries also. Their validation different. Their validation names different, services different. Every third party is not same. That means we are not sure which third party your company uses according to their project. What you should do, you have to explore the third party by yourself. I already told you, sometimes companies build their own schemas, and they use those schemas for validation. In their documentations, they will provide all the details. You have to go through them and you have to explore. So that means these third parties, major headache is regularly they will be changing. There will be no official 100% perfect documentation. Several points will be missing. You have to explore yourself and learn and use them. So, and we are not sure which third party any company uses projects. They change regularly. Sometimes they use their own. In that case, a developer should have the ability to know and explore every third party. I will tell you how to learn the third parties. What is the order? In the next level, we will see that, how to do that. So initially, these are the options we are having. Okay, let's run this and see now. And see how to display the message. Message we are using same formic dot what errors dot username. That means you see now, I click on this submit, then it is same. It is same. I'm entering the name. So name too short and fine. I'm entering age minimum 15 required, some 45, max 30 only. That means we are defining some 22, fine. I'm entering some number, invalid mobile, because it should start with what plus 9. So this looks little better when compared to the previous, because we don't need to write all the logic. It is ready-made, just attach. These are validation schemas. These are validation schemas. In this validation schema, error messages are attached in the same way. How error messages are displayed? So error messages are displayed by using formic errors. Formic errors object. That means we have to just use formic dot errors dot some field name. So this is validation schema. How you build a schema for validation. Ready-made validation schemas will be there. Those functions, here I will give an example. So this is validation demo.jsx. Same example, but this time we remove the function and we are installing yup, we are importing yup, and through the yup, we are writing the validation. Now, see, these third parties provide more simplified technique also. More simplified than this. Means they have several more points. For example, here, when it is going to verify your validation, when you click on submit. Suppose I went into this field and I am not filling anything and I click outside, then it should show me a warning. That means validations generally fire up only on submit. If we want validations to fire up when we got focus into that field and blur it, then what you have to do is you have to add one more event into formic. Not only on change, you have to write what? On blur. On blur, formic have a handle blur. Handle blur. That means now what happens here? So without entering, you click inside and click outside, it will verify. but it is verifying all. That means you see here also mobile. What is it? On blur is what? Formic dot handle blur. Handle blur we are doing. So age also on blur. Formic dot handle blur. Handle blur we are using. And you can see that now on blur anywhere, you click age and click outside. But it is verifying all because form is submitting. In the next level, we will control it. We will control that in the next level. But what is advantage now? It will not wait until you click submit. Before you click submit, it will verify. When you get into the focus of any field, get out of there without validating correct values defining, then automatic it fires up. That means now imagine how much complex your design is. That means here in the design, you have to maintain a name for the field. You have to maintain on change. You have to maintain on blur. That means you can verify on blur. So I will give a simple note here. So note validations of formic validations. Formic validations fire up, fire up on various events, various events, which you can configure for every element. And what are that? We have on submit is that formic dot handle submit. We have formic dot handle change. We have formic dot handle blur like this. So we have input type is text. On change is equal to handle change. On blur is equal to formic dot handle blur. Right. Now, for this, Formic have a solution. If you want to write all validations, means all events, then Formic says that you can do it in a simple way. Instead of writing every event manually, you can do in a simple way. How you can do is actually Formic have a spread operator. For example, instead of writing on change on blur, you don't need to write that. Put a binding expression. We can use spread operator means dot dot dot. You know spread operator, and it uses a formic dot get field properties. And which field? Field name. Field name is what? User name. It is nothing but. So what it will do is it will get all the field related properties and assign to the formic. All properties means on blur, on change, on key up, on key down. Every event of element is attached to this text box. That means you don't need to write the events now. If there are many events to write, then you just put this. That means now what you can do here, you can see When I run this now, I'm not writing on change anymore. I'm not writing any on blur, right? Then you say submit. First you click inside it and click outside, it will verify. You click on submit, it is verifying. You are typing, it is handling. But now no events are written. That makes your design simplified. If many events you have to write, so instead of that, you can just use this technique. That is the better way to handle. But if I don't want on blur, I want only on change, then this is not a great idea. Why? Because unnecessarily it is attaching all the events. We want only specific, then we write. If you are dealing with all events, so you can do one thing. We can write like this. What we can do, input type is equal to text. So name as username. Here we can put a binding comic dot get field props, and field name is username. That's it. We can put this. Yeah. So these are two techniques. One is by using validate, another one by using validate schema. Validate and validate schema. There is more simple technique. That means there is more simple design and simple technique of validation. Actually, Formic provides ready-made components for validation. We can use those components, then it will simplify. More simple technique of writing the validation means your design also becomes simple. Design and logic become simple with ready-made components, but you cannot use them in every situation. That is the reason all the techniques are available. So which you need for the situation, you can decide. Now there is another one that we will see in tomorrow's session. And that is what Formic validation components are present. We have ready-made components for validation. We can use them and we can make the validation more simple. That we'll see tomorrow how to handle that. Okay.